Welcome back. Today we're unpacking a mental wellness module that really gets right to the core of how we function. If you've ever felt like your mental well-being is kind of like a puzzle with missing pieces, well, this explainer gives us a highly structured, ground-up framework to translate those big, abstract concepts into actual, actionable physical methods. Let's get right into it.
I want to start by anchoring us on this specific, super powerful opening phrase taken directly from our source material, creating healthy mental health. I really want you to stop and think about that phrasing for a second. It doesn't talk about just passively having mental health, right? It explicitly says creating it. That implies action, it implies intention, and a deliberate building process. It's this active journey where participants literally learn to construct their own healthy mental state from scratch.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our syllabus for today. First, the wellness foundation. Second, the one mind concept. Third, the mind and body connection. And finally, we'll hit the applied practical methods.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the Wellness Foundation, focusing on mind and body.
So, our source material starts with a really clear directive. Focus on your mind and your body. Notice the dual nature here? It places the mind and the body side by side as entirely equal partners. They essentially form a single, interconnected foundation that you've got to focus on together if you want to build healthy mental health.
Moving right along to Section 2, the one mind concept, deepening self-understanding.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how the text uses the idea of the one mind to drive self-understanding. Instead of letting your attention get scattered by all those daily stressors, which, let's be honest, happens to all of us, focusing on one mind acts as this inward-directed lens. By isolating your focus into this state, you're effectively stripping away all that external noise. And the direct result? A much deeper understanding of the self. So this internal, unified concept is totally the necessary precursor to everything else taught in the module. Which brings us to Section 3, mind and body connection, bridging theory and practice. Let's walk step by step through the actual learning journey. Step 1 is to focus on mind and body to establish your baseline. Then, Step 2 is to understand the self through that singular focus. And finally, Step 3 is where you apply breathing and sensing. You start with this broad foundational focus, right? Then you narrow it down to understand your internal state, and finally, you take physical action. So the internal understanding directly fuels the external practice. And finally, we reach Section 4, the applied practical methods, tools for mental health. Here we get into the comprehensive, two-pronged practical toolkit taught in the module, the breathing method and the body sensing method. With this, you aren't just sitting in a classroom conceptualizing things anymore, you are actively tasked with engaging your respiratory system and your physical sensory awareness. Participants get these distinct, really complementary tools that take the whole concept of healthy mental health out of the abstract and place it squarely into the physical body. It's a real game changer. Now this brings up an absolutely essential question. How exactly do breathing and sensing promote self-mental health? The source text tells us definitively that participants learn to apply these methods specifically for their mental well-being. But let's follow the logic for a second. If the foundation requires focusing on both the mind and the body, then these physical methods, breathing and sensing, well, there are the mechanical ways to force that focus to happen. Think about it. When you concentrate entirely on your breath or on the physical sensations in your muscles, you are actively pulling your mind away from external anxieties and anchoring it firmly in your present physical body. These two physical methods reinforce and execute the ultimate goal of the module, which is creating that unified, deeply understood self.
So the crucial point here is how flawlessly all of these elements interconnect to create a complete curriculum. First, participants learn to focus on the mind and body. Second, they focus on the one mind to understand themselves more deeply. Third, they actively apply the breathing and body sensing methods. And the result of all that? They promote their own self-mental health. Notice how every single step here relies entirely on the one right before it. I mean, you literally cannot successfully apply the breathing and sensing methods if you haven't first developed the one-mind focus to understand yourself. And you can't achieve that focus if you haven't bought into that first foundational idea that the mind and body must be focused on together. It is a perfectly structured, closed-loop system for well-being.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this final distillation from our source material. True self-mental health begins with committing to the mind-body focus. This module makes it incredibly clear that mental well-being isn't just some passive state you stumble into. It requires the active, dedicated application of methods like breathing and body sensing to truly understand the self. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on today. When was the last time you consciously used a physical sensation, like the rhythm of your own breath, to genuinely check in, silence the noise, and truly understand your own one mind? Remember, the tools are right there in your own body, just waiting to be applied. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep exploring.